with the Kennedys, or will the Kennedys sell generally? Is this going to be big news?
Oh, this will be big news. I mean, let's face it, the US economy's in the toilet, Iraq's turning to custard. What we need is a nice scandal. Boyd said America's version of royalty. And yes, Vanity Fair is obsessed with the Kennedys. Writer Dominic Dunn has had this been playing out a kind of spat with the clan in the pages of Vanity Fair over the last, I suppose, last 6 months. He campaigned for the opening of a trial against Kennedy cousin Michael Skakel, whose neighbour turned up dead in Greenwich in 1975. He managed to get that trial to court, and Skakel was convicted. Then Bobby Kennedy Jr., I guess that's Bobby Kennedy Sr.'s son. Doesn't seem that they have a lot of variety of names in this clan. JFK Jr., Bobby Kennedy Jr. He wrote a piece in the Atlantic Monthly accusing Dominic Dunn of essentially stitching up his cousin. Now, Dunn has replied to that just recently in New York Magazine by calling Bobby Kennedy Jr. a pompous, I want to say the word, but I can't, but it's a part of the human anatomy, and it rhymes with troll, Pam.
Ah, rhymes with troll. I thought it rhymed with dick or something. I saw it dotted, but anyhow, if it's a Rudy one, and I'm letting myself down by not working out the rhyming thing, can we just slip, and I say that nicely, quite easily into the Supreme Court ruling on sodomy? What an extraordinary country the US is. It will invade other countries, kill women and children, and is so uptight about sex.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very prudish country here, and last Friday, the Supreme Court of the U.S. struck down a law in Texas outlawing sodomy between consenting adults. A couple of guys had gotten amorous in their own home, got found out about it, and been taken to court. So this went all the way through the state up to the Supreme Court. And in a split decision, the Supreme Court said no, it's their own home, they're allowed to do what they like. It's a curious situation because, yeah, I mean, that seems like a good argument, and yet there was a dissenting argument by a frothing right-wing judge called Justice Scalia, who said that the state has often intervened in matters of sexual morality. I mean, we disapprove of incest, we disapprove of child abuse, so it's interesting that these two arguments kind of coexist. I think what's also interesting is that the Supreme Court these days is a largely conservative Supreme Court picked by Republicans, so this issue may actually split the Republican Party, which will no doubt invigorate the Democrats.
It was also
Republicans, of course, are always for choice.
Also interesting to see that in some states. I mean, I've always thought it was amusing that you can get imprisoned for sodomy in Texas and go to jail and be sodomized, you know. But interesting that heterosexual couples in some in some states as well weren't allowed to have oral sex. And this, again, a country that will let you buy a gun.
No, weren't allowed to. Exactly. There's states such as Utah, for example, they say that heterosexual couples aren't allowed to have oral sex or buggery, which at least seems consistent. The Texans, apparently, in Texas, you are allowed to bugger your wife. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but of course, if your wife happens to be a man, then you're not allowed to do it, although you are now because the Supreme Court says that you can.
I have to cut you off. I've never heard that word before. I'm absolutely horrified. Look forward to seeing a lot of Ed Klein.
I do apologise.
And well, look, I'm sorry, you're sacked, and a lot of Jacqueline Bissett biographical stuff over the next couple of days. Thanks very much for getting up so early in the morning. Tim Wilson, our New York correspondent. Oh, bugger, that was frightening. Oh, God. Well, just regroup. Coming up after the break, we'll have tomorrow's headlines, and selling sex is now, more sex above board, but the recruiting drive isn't going so swimmingly. We'll find out why.